The title Doctor Who Joy to the World must be ironic, because that did not give me joy whatsoever. Hello all, if you are new here, please consider leaving a like and subscribing, and comment down below your thoughts on Joy to the World. But without further ado, let's get into my mini review of this episode. Now, like always, I would like to start off with a positive of the episode. I always like to start on a positive note, not a negative note. My positive is that the character development that 15 has in this episode is incredible. We see him live this almost normal human life for a year as he's waiting for one of the time portals for the time hotel to open up. There's this good, at least a couple of minute long montage of the Doctor living this normal life with a girl called Anita who runs and works at this hotel, and is very heartwarming, and I'd really like Anita to stay on as a companion or come back at some point. She's a really good character in comparison to Joy, who's not so good, but we'll get to that later. This episode really gives a good insight to Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor, and really makes him feel like the Doctor. We even, in this episode, have the Doctor's theme motif in this episode, which is just incredible to see alongside Ncuti.
This room is not available. While guests local to the time period are still in residence, the room is not available to the Time Hotel.
I will forever love that motif, and it being alongside Ncuti, for me at least, really cements him as the Doctor. Hearing that song alongside him, just doing something so simplistic that the Doctor would do, just makes him the Doctor even more so for me. This episode really builds up Ncuti's Doctor's character. From the trailer of Joy to the World, it really seemed like he was going to be in this whole vain thing, where, you know, he's talking about being alone again and all that stuff. But it really didn't come across like that. It came across as self-improvement, continuing along from the 14th Doctor's kind of therapy session with Donna Noble. And I genuinely can't wait to see more of the 15th Doctor in Series 2. Although not all of his episodes have been great, Ncuti is fast becoming a very, very good Doctor in my book. Another positive of this episode is how it looked. The episode, aside from a few scenes, looked absolutely stunning. The sets were amazing, the CGI for the most part was absolutely immaculate, it just looked like a great episode all around, and this episode really had its heartfelt touching moments, mainly with the 15th Doctor and the hotel worker Anita. The Silurian that we saw throughout the trailers that was really pushed really wasn't in it much, but his performance and the way they killed the character off was really heartfelt and touching. It was really, really emotional and good to see. It was a bit of a darker point of the episode, and it was just good to see Doctor Who go back to its darker tone of roots and deal with topics like this. It was great. But something that wasn't so great was the character of Joy. Now, Joy really wasn't in this episode as much at all. I genuinely think Anita probably had more screen time and more character development than Joy did. Joy was a very two-dimensional character who had just problems on the surface level, right? Not being able to see her mum during the COVID time, being lonely, sad, that type of thing. And it was told to us rather than shown to us like Anita's problems were. They were developed to us and not, you know, directly shoved in our face, and that worked really well. But with Joy, it didn't. It came across as annoying, and her character was developed in such a weird way, which made it really unbearable to watch. And that's one thing I also want to bring up, is how this character was developed, which was through the idea of COVID and not being able to see her mum. This is one of the first times in the show that COVID's really been properly developed, spoken about a lot, so it was really important. But they didn't use it as, you know, this hard impact hitting story. They kind of used it as a quip to, you know, make fun of the Tories, which, you know, great. But then it was kind of used as a plot device, which just really didn't come off well and didn't work. By the end of the episode, Joy has become like a star. She's become a joy to the world. That was the whole premise of this episode. There's a suitcase and it's got an unborn star. The star's been born and Joy is like the all-encompassing thing, and she becomes the joy to the world. Literally, yeah, it's so bad. Towards the end of the episode, before Joy literally becomes a bloody star, she's meant to have this emotional speech, this dialogue, which is meant to move a tear, and it definitely worked for some people, but for me, how a character was developed and portrayed on screen as this annoying, whiny character whose problems are pretty two-dimensional because they weren't developed and properly, you know, applied to the character, it came off as very annoying and pretty cringe and hard to watch. It really probably didn't help that during this, she floated off in the midst of the sky of a bad CGI star and literally just hovered there, and it looked genuinely awful. Really added to that cringe factor. Like, I was watching it and I just couldn't keep looking. This is an issue I had with the episode, was it had some really strong ideas, especially around the character of Joy, but they just didn't flourish in the episode. They were very suppressed, very two-dimensional, wasn't very well written, a lot of these ideas, and it just didn't work in my eyes. For some people it definitely did, and have been seeing that online, and that's great for you. If you took something from this episode, I'm very happy for you. But unfortunately, I just didn't take anything from this episode. There was lots of emotion there with 15, and I felt that, and I felt lots of those moments, but with Joy, just nothing. I felt no joy or emotion or whatsoever. It just didn't hit. The emotional moments that we're meant to care about with this character Joy just didn't hit. I ended up caring about Anita more, and that definitely was not the focal point of the episode, right? She was just kind of there, and, you know, you got to focus on her, but Joy was meant to be the main focal point, right? Her name is in the title of the episode. She was in the trailers, and she kind of felt sidelined, right? She was maybe in it for 15 minutes. I think they're really struggling with balancing the episodes, how the characters and story, and balancing it. There really wasn't much story, and with some of the characters, they kind of got undercut. And this is not only an issue with Stephen Moffat in this episode, but it's just RTD Era 2 in general. I felt it with quite a few episodes now, and it's really unfortunate, because some great premises in there are undercut by some pretty bad choices and balancing issues. I really desperately wanted to like this episode. After the incredible finale of Series 1, I really wanted to like this episode. I was defending its CGI on Twitter and everything like that, and I still hold by that, but overall it just wasn't a very good episode. The character development for the 15th Doctor was immaculate and well done, the CGI was incredible, the story looked great, the character of Joy had some really good ideas there. It could have flourished really well, and if executed properly and developed okay, it could have been a really good episode. But because of that, it just wasn't. Joy got sidelined and underdeveloped, and, you know, I really didn't care about Joy by the end of the episode. I cared more about Anita, right? I genuinely couldn't give less of a fuck about Joy. We also see Ruby in this episode living her life, which is great to see. I'm glad they're building this up, glad they're kind of building up this universe or whatever. And speaking of building up this universe, we also saw a teaser for Series 2. Series 2 looks great. We're definitely seeing more of that demigod, harbinger type stuff with Sutekh, that kind of vibe. And it looks great, looks very darker in tone, and I'm very excited for it. Had to mention it here because, you know, it looks great.
Beyond this universe, solo game to them.
Doctor! You need to get me home.
This might be the long way round.
But the games are deadly.
What the hell is this?
So what were my thoughts on this episode? Well, overall, I think this episode was pretty bad. I think it was a stinker, unfortunately. I definitely love, like I said, Ncuti Gatwa's performance here, the development of 15. I love the CGI, I love how the episode looked. It was great. It had a story there, had some good ideas, but unfortunately, it just didn't develop it right, and I felt like some bits were sidelined like Joy. And because of that, it really suffered. I'm glad we saw the bits we did with 15 and Anita and all these moments. They were great. Definitely the standouts of the episode, and the most memorable bits of the episode by far. They were just great to see. But overall, I probably wouldn't rate this episode higher. I'd probably rate this episode maybe a 4.5 out of 10. Everybody, what was your thoughts on this episode? Did you enjoy it? Did you think it was bad? Did you have a good experience with it? I really hope you did. I really hope you took something from this episode, and maybe more than me, because if you took something from this episode, that's great for you. But please feel free to comment that all down below. But I have been your host, Samuel. I will be making consistent Doctor Who content from 2025 onwards, covering classic, new Who, and the new series when it comes out, but I will catch you in the next Doctor Who video.